So, yeah. So I am someone who got interested in the mystery of consciousness rather early. Around the age of 10, I remember I realized that that reality was not this, but was actually a simulation that was running by my brain. Yeah, rather early, I realized that reality, as I thought it was in fact just a model that was run by my brain. And then it led to many questions, and I became obsessed of, well, how the brain can do that, how the brain can generate consciousness. I don't really know what is reality. What I have is a model of reality. Well, how this essentially non-physical model, because it's not the physics of reality, it's just a computation. How can this make me? How can this give me all these feelings? How can the red color just come out of something which is information, math, electrical impulses in my brain? All this was extremely mysterious to me, and so I pretty much constantly had these big questions in the background of my mind, and so I was essentially using introspection to try to get a glimpse of how my brain works and how my consciousness works. And after a few years of doing that, I realized something rather that I think put me on the track of AGI, which is that I realized that I could prone my own consciousness as I was thinking, and what I would see was very simplistic things going on in my brain, very simple methods of, for instance, enumerating things that happen together, or things which are very systematic and non-intelligent. And these processes, which were systematic and non-intelligent, would give me intelligence. They were helping me to just find really useful relationships, and helping me become intelligent, while they were themselves, well, essentially very stupid. And so the mystery of consciousness was still there, but at least I thought, well, intelligence itself is not that mysterious. It was still mysterious, of course. I tried to sketch some models of how all these processes could just give rise to something which is autonomous and able to do essentially reflexive intelligence and these kind of things, and that was very difficult, and I failed on that. But I knew that from this experience, I did know that it's harder, but it's not mysterious. And at some point well, I don't know if I have to get into that. I mean, it's going to take maybe a good 10 minutes if I start speaking about the relationships between consciousness and mathematics, because there was a moment. Well, basically, I mean, I had a computer, and I was trying to program artificial intelligence algorithms. I mean, I failed every time. Basically, just thinking about it would make me realize that, well, there are too many combinations. I mean, my Amstrad CPC 464 is never going to be able to run that kind of computation.
Why is maths and reasoning very fundamental to AI development? Is maths just a tool?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Different people have different views, but my view is that math is essentially consciousness. It may not seem intuitively true, but what led me to believe that is there are two angles. First, there is the study of the foundation of math, which has very interesting theorems like like Gödel's theorems. People have used these arguments to say that consciousness is non-mathematical. That is, it's more powerful than math. But what they've missed is that you can actually take all these reasonings and you can map them to mathematical formalism. That is, any mathematical reasoning that has ever happened, that has ever been written down, you can map that into math itself. So it's not an argument that stands. And the other reason is, well, after a lot of introspection, I realized that whenever I'm having a supposedly philosophical, metaphysical, I mean, whatever, something which seems to be outside outside of science and math, as soon as I introspect, I see math again. I see structures. I see, okay, why can you make this philosophical inference? Well, because I'm having these mathematical assumptions that they are hidden, but if I look deeper into my own mind, I start to see them. And so basically, as far as I've seen, I haven't seen anything that is non-mathematical. I just don't know what is a non-mathematical thing. I've never seen one. So I like the idea that there are non-mathematical things, but where are they? Yeah. So yeah. So that is one way to answer why I believe mathematics and reasoning is so fundamental to AGI.
Excellent. Okay, so what do you think is the future of AI, especially OpenCog?
Oh, well, I hope it's a successful future, first of all. So the plan is, at least as far as I am concerned, the plan is to experiment with reasoning and experiment with speeding up inference control. That is, how to make the system basically go from a set of knowledge to a conclusion, going from premises to a or multiple conclusions. And this is when it's a simple reasoning, it can be relatively fast. I mean, it may take a few seconds. As soon as you have a reasoning that may that may be a chain of dozens of hundreds of steps, then I mean, if you take a naive approach, it may never finish, because there is a combinatorial explosion there, and so the challenge is to be able to control these inferences in an intelligent way, in order to be able to reach the conclusion that you want. And the interesting thing is that it actually, I mean, in order to do that, you need something intelligent. But we are building something intelligent, so it becomes like a recursive function in a mathematical sense. That is, the way a recursive function works is that, okay, I'm building this function, I don't know how it is, but I'm going to assume that I have this function, but just for a data which is, say, a smaller data, for instance, a smaller number. And if I have that, then I just have to arrange it, and I'll get the definition of the entire recursive function. And there is something similar here. If you just assume that you have something intelligent, even if it's not very intelligent, you can already use that thing to speed up the inference control. And because you do that, you are going to make this thing more intelligent. And so the function what's the word?
Recursion.
I mean, recurse, the verb.
Oh yeah, recurse.
Recurse. And the function recurses. And that's how it grows. Now, it's not obvious that it may work. You need to have assumptions in the first place that you can do that. But that's where the research is very interesting, because we don't know that. And so the plan, technically speaking, is we're going to take a sequence of reasoning problems, and we're going to have the reasoning engine solve them. We're going to collect the data about what the reasoning engine was doing while trying to solving them. And then we're going to apply the whole system, that is OpenCog, not just reasoning, but everything, all the algorithms, over this problem, which is try to find a way so that the next time you encounter these problems, you're going to find a solution much faster. And so this is the first step. Then the next step is to try to apply that over other problems. And so then you reapply the same thing, but then you can use, once you have gathered knowledge about improving the inference control, then you can use reasoning itself to help that. That is, you may be able to improve inference control in a crude way, but it's still going to help you. And most importantly, if you can transfer this to helping the inference control itself by using a better reasoning engine, a more efficient one, then you can essentially use reasoning to help reasoning. And that's how the loops and hopefully the self-improvement can take place. Yeah.
What could be the impact of AI development and the singularity, especially?
The impact on society?
Yes, the social impacts of the singularity.
Yeah, so it's clear that AGI is it is the well, it's not the peak of automation, but it's pretty close to that. I mean, well, at least if we take as a reference what we know, Edge AI is where you automate absolutely everything. And so the impact is huge, because then there would be, I mean, almost no use for human labor. And at least not in the way we need it today. So that is a huge impact. And we're starting to see that already. I mean, automation has already been responsible for unemployment, the increasing unemployment over the past 40 years. And it's regrettable that the people who have helped to contribute to this automation just got out of work just because they were not in, they didn't have the position to say, to claim a share in their help. Because whatever work you do, I mean, since the society is essentially trying to automate its work because it's more efficient, whatever you do, I mean, even if you serve coffees, you contribute to automation, because, well, these people are drinking coffee, and then they use this they use the coffee that keeps them awake to either contribute to automation or help people who are going to contribute to automation. So essentially, the entire society is automating everything. And but so we're getting in a situation where essentially only the people who own the big companies are taking the benefits of that, and the others are just out of work. So one thing which is nice about open source softwares is that, like, whenever I contribute to OpenCog, I know that I am, I mean, I'll have my share, because the share is OpenCog itself. It's free, it's open source, I'll be able to use it. I won't be fucked up by the corporation that is asking me to work on a closed source software that I'm not going to be able to use unless I pay it. So I think, I mean, if everybody, essentially, if everybody was aware of that and would insist on only consuming goods and services that are coming out of open source, whatever, not necessarily softwares, but whatever, I mean, hardware, organizations, I mean, then they know that they would have their share, basically. But because most people don't know that, they don't insist on driving the society and the consumption in that direction. And so that is very regrettable. Maybe it's going to change, but yeah. So if that is the case, it's clear to me that it would certainly help to have a positive impact on society. So the unified reasoning, the unified rule engine, which is essentially the reasoning engine. I mean, it contains one side of the reasoning functionality, which is how do you chain rules to get to where you want to go. But then there's another side, which is how do you deal with uncertainty. And so basically, how do you design the rules? So that's they are both equally important, because if you have rules filled with contradictions, I mean, you're not going anywhere. So you do need to maintain a mathematical consistency over the system that you define. So yes, that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm trying to have the rule engine work well, do what it's supposed to do. Like right now, I am trying to complete the backward chainer, which is going from a conclusion to a set of premises that you know would that is essentially building a strategy, building an inference, a reasoning inference, but going from the conclusion to the premises. So this is one aspect. The other aspect is crafting the rules, which is what PLN is all about. And crafting these rules in a way that it is as consistent as possible.
So what is the PLN? What is PLN?
So PLN stands for Probabilistic Logic Network. And it's a way to reason on it's a way to carry uncertain reasoning. Really, it really is the point, but in a way that is mathematically as consistent as possible. Basically, to do that, we model uncertainty probabilistically. That is the that really is the core idea. And once you do that, well, you just have to run the math to know how to propagate uncertainty, as well as, you know, I mean, the strength of belief. You can also manipulate uncertainty in a rigorous way if you model these in probabilistic way. Well, I mean, I have focused on almost all components of OpenCog. There's one aspect which I haven't, which I know relatively little about, is attentional focus, and it's a very important aspect. I mean, it's actually so the attentional focus component is basically guiding all processes. I mean, all processing that takes place is guided by attentional focus, which is where should you spend your computational resources? Where should you focus on? This can make a huge difference. I mean, when you have a database with possibly billions of atoms, having something that guides you to just focus on what is going to be helpful for your next goal, your next task is absolutely necessary. Yes, technical, but especially non-technical people to take away is to get to know the open source community and all the open source movement. I think it is such a, I mean, especially today when automation is rapidly taking over human labor. It is one way to have a have a what would be the word? I mean, positive transition. I mean, there's a better way to say that, but anyway, that's the idea. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.